interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Lost by Q. Now with this episode, it's just a little different, and the reason why I say that because usually the previous guest I was familiar with, but this guest that I have, she is highly demanded, and she definitely have a lot to say for the community. No, I would like to introduce Miss Connie Snow.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm really excited.
Thank you. You know what? I'm so excited. And the reason why, because for people that didn't know, I put the last podcast in different groups as far as like Facebook, Instagram, the Next Door app, various, groups. And I was getting a lot of interest feedback off of it. And a lot of people was commenting on Miss Snow, saying, either reach out to Miss Snow. So I said, you know what? Let me reach out to Miss Snow. And I am glad that I did. And I think you guys will be happy that I reached out to her too. So with that being said, Miss Snow, can you please let them know what position that you're running for in the county?
Yes, my name is Connie Snow, and I'm running as a write-in independent candidate for Henry County Chair Commissioner.
Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to start off with what made you to decide to run for that position?
That's a good question. I've lived in Henry County for about 20 years, and I'll be honest, I never really paid attention to our local politics. Not that I'm not aware of what our local elected officials do and what they're responsible with, but I naively thought that it was an area that I really needed to pay attention to. I think I paid more attention to our national news and our presidency and those items, and not so much to our local leaders. However, about a year ago, we started getting alerts in our neighborhood about impending developments by our homes. And so we started to attend the meetings and started to voice our concerns. And it was at those meetings that it became apparent to me that things weren't just right, meaning things weren't being done in an ethical or in a manner that was for the community.
Okay.
And so in that time frame, I started to kind of research stuff and started to try to find liked people in the community that I could pair with. And it was at that moment that I engaged with Tina Correa, who is this wonderful Henry County resident who has been in Henry County for 40 years. She has started a grassroots organization called Conserve Henry. And Conserve Henry's main focus is conserving, our ecosystem, obviously, but it's also conserving our community. And when I say conserving our community, I mean it's putting our focus back on our youth, our seniors, our infrastructure, saving some of our green space, and ultimately building a community that we all could be proud to live in. And so I started to really get involved with that organization, and through that involvement, I began to notice and identify that we had some unethical, potentially illegal things going on in our community. And so I started to dig more. And some of the things that I started to notice was that, at least in regards to the city of Stockbridge, is that we had council members on that committee who are working hard to push people out of their homes.
Wow.
So currently you have the Stockbridge Amphitheater. And I get that, people love the amphitheater and they love going, but does it ever dawn on anybody that that amphitheater was built literally up against a whole bunch of homes? And did anybody ever think in the community what that impact would be on those homeowners? I know the homeowners in that community knew what the impact was. But
that's what I was going to ask you. Did the homeowners actually get out, vote? Did they go out and voice their opinion, and they just ignored it?
They did voice their opinion, and they fought very hard, so much so that one of the citizens was arrested on charges that weren't substantiated by any evidence, and that those charges were later dismissed.
Wow.
And I do believe he did at some point get some civil settlement that I'm not completely sure of. But I do know that they utilized the legal system to silence him, and that in itself is alarming to me. It really bothers me, right? And so, they fought hard. In present day, amphitheater's up and going, it's running, but their quality of life, it's diminished. Could you imagine living next to an amphitheater where if you're, let's just say a senior citizen, because that community is mostly senior citizens, right? you probably don't want to hear noise all day.
No.
You don't want to hear racket all day. You
No.
want to be able to think in peace and rest and sleep.
Right.
But they've had their daily lives just kind of like thrown into like chaos, and they're supposed to sit there and just take it from their elected officials. And I don't think that's very right. And I know currently they're already offering, if they haven't already offered everybody, but they have offered some of those people $140,000 to sell their house. And that was the ultimate plan for that amphitheater. It was to build it up in that community, to push them out so they could get rid of the homes and redevelop it to something that they thought looks better. And a term that they commonly use to do this is blighted. They call the community blighted. I've been to that community. It's not blighted, not in my opinion. Is it older homes? Yes. Is it, a lower tax bracket? Because maybe, for example, in that community, the vast majority of the citizens are senior citizens. They're not paying their school tax anymore, right?
Right.
So that's a big tax loss for any county or city thing, right? So that's another big goal, in my opinion, on why they're doing it. That they don't have the tax base they want. And that's wrong. I mean, at the end of the day, those are your citizens that you're supposed to protect.
Right.
And then as time went on and I kept fighting my developments, I started finding out that the developers in our county, specifically one, is a convicted felon that served 5 years in prison for development fraud. And then in 2013 was served a civil suit for mortgage fraud, forgery, and bank fraud, in which he was found liable, and it costed the citizens millions of dollars in tax revenue, right? We had to pay off for that mistake. What baffles me is why we would approve this developer to build the Bridges of Jericho development, or why we would approve this developer to be over the Patrick Henry development that's intending. I'm pretty sure that is the same developer over that one as well. And I know that developer's doing a lot of stuff, not just for the city of Stockbridge, but for the county. So the question we all have to ask ourselves is, why are our local leaders willingly allowing developers with criminal histories to develop in our community? Wow. What's even more troubling is if you look at the history of South Georgia, specifically with Clayton and Henry. Clayton County lost their school accreditation years ago. I mean, it was so damaging. I don't know if you're aware what happens when you lose your school accreditation, but could you imagine being a senior in high school and getting ready to graduate, but because your school lost that accreditation, you're no longer eligible for scholarships, right, and you're no longer eligible to have any of your school credits transfer over to a college? Not to mention those homeowners' properties values completely tanked, and it took years for that county to recover, and they're still trying to recover in that day. What's interesting about that scenario is most people believe that it was the Board of Education who had did it solely on their own. That's not the true statement. The Board of Education was being influenced unduly by political outside resources, and those political outside resources would have been the county commissioners, city officials, the developers, and that maybe outside political influencers in that county at that time. And they were influenced, that Board of Education, to make decisions that weren't in the best interest of the students, but in the best interest of them. And that's why that happened. What's scary is to know that those same developers and some of those same political influencers are what's developing in our county right now. And to know that present day, we have 15 schools in Henry County failing. That's a 38%.
15 schools?
15. And that's a 38% failure rate. Our kids deserve better. They really do. And anytime you go to any of these city or county meetings to fight these developments, while sometimes they may not get approved, more oftentimes they do. If they don't get approved, they end up back on the agenda, and they end up on the agenda in kind of in a sneaky way, in my opinion. I'll give you a good example. I think it was about a couple weeks ago, there was a proposal for 174 townhouses to be built off Jonesboro Road. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I cannot drive down Jonesboro Road present day without having to sit in traffic forever. Right. Everything's clogged and congested, and how many more townhouses and apartments can we put on Jonesboro Road? Right. I mean, at some point it does have to stop. And then if we put 174 townhouses, and we already have 15 schools failing, we're going to add more students to a problem that's already existing, and we're going to keep creating a problem. And that problem is going to compound, and it's going to get worse. And before you know it, we may be Clayton County. I hope not, but that seems like the direction our leaders are putting us in.
So basically, this what made you get in, what made you want to run for the position that you are running for, because you was all for the community.
Yeah, I'm all for the community.
And
I'm watching everything that's happening to everybody, and I don't think it's right.
No, I mean, from what you're saying, I don't think it's right either.
Yep.
From what she's saying, I don't feel that is right either. Now, guys, I had to go, yes, I did a little homework. I went and I had to research and I had to come up with some questions because with the position that she running for, I don't know too much about it. So I am going to ask her questions and hopefully these are the correct questions that you guys want to know about the community. So work with me. So one of the questions that I have for you, can you tell us a little bit about your skills and past education that think you would be beneficial to you, that would be beneficial to you in the role as a Henry County Commissioner Chair?
Yeah, so I'm a director of operations for a litigation support company. Had a career in it for 17 years. In my role, I have to run a division and I have to run it by day. So meaning I have to oversee our budgets, I have to oversee our payroll, I have to oversee our billing, I have to review contracts, I have to do negotiations, I have to handle HR, I have to look for ways for us to grow and develop so that we're, offering more services to our clients. So I'm involved with all those items in my day-to-day work life, right? And those are some of the same things that a county commissioner would do, just different within the county, right?
Right.
So as a county commissioner, you do have to be responsible for your budgets. Right now, we're currently over budget. You do have to be responsible for understanding the contracts that are going in and out of the county, meaning are we giving contracts to vendors or services that are going to be economically a benefit to us and give us the quality of work that we deserve, right? I don't know if that's happening. I'm not saying it's not, but I don't see what the harm would be to double check and make sure that it's all happening for us. You have to learn how to manage diplomatically within the community, right?
Right.
Which is what I have to do in my job. I have employees, and employees are just like anybody in your community, right? I may have employees who don't get along. There may be some friction. There may be some underlying issues going on. And it's my job as the director to make sure that we're managing those the people in the community in my company to make sure that we're all effectively working together.
Right.
That's my statement, that we're not allowing the nitty gritty or the issues that you may have with a human within your division affect how we're going to service our clients. And that's kind of similar to what you're going to do here or what I'm going to do as a chair. I know there's a lot more to it. For the chair, there's going to be, working to, hopefully stabilize or lower property taxes, zoning and all that stuff. But that's kind of similar to what I do. It's just a different items.
Yeah. Okay. So what is your vision for the future of Henry County?
My vision for the future of Henry County is to have a county that works for the citizens, not the developers.
Okay.
Because that's currently what's happening, right? To work with our educational leaders to see what we can do to support our education system, because obviously they are lacking support and they need it. I think one of the principals just resigned recently for Eagles Landing, if I'm not mistaken, right? And from my understanding, he's a really good guy.
Yes, both of my kids went to Eagles Landing. I have a couple of kids that go. He was a really good guy. He is.
And from my understanding, he resigned because he wasn't getting the support and he had too much interference going on. So what interference? Going back to Clayton County, what was the interference?
Right.
Was it the parents not supporting him, or was it our leaders? And I want to lean towards the fact that it might have been our leaders, right? So we've got to change that recipe. We've got to get in there and do what's right for them, because our youth is our future.
It's our future.
It's our future.
And my audience, y'all know, I always say the youth is the future. Because we grown up. It's the kids that's coming under us, and they need to know that we have their back. They need to have structure. And with him resigning, I just hope that you're not put a hard impact.
Yeah, me too. And then we also need to be more transparent.
Yes.
So present day, if I want open records, especially from the city of Stockbridge, it's like fighting tooth and nail. I think it would surprise you to know that a while ago I'd asked for open records request regarding relating to some of the financials for the amphitheater. Mm-hmm. And I was told I was going to have to pay close to $13,000 to get that information. Now, keep in mind, the amphitheater is funded by taxpayers. That should be open records. That should be nothing. That should be something that would be worth $13,000. And so I had to go to the Attorney General to get assistance for that. And the Attorney General worked with the city, and they got the cost lowered down to a little over $600. And we went and paid it, and we went and got the records. And the records were so heavily redacted that you couldn't make heads or tails from them. And again, that indicates you're hiding something, right? Why heavily redact something? Originally they said it was because they had affidavits and they were protecting the contracts of the performers. Okay, we'll throw that aside. But a lot of the other items were receipts and invoices to items purchased for the amphitheater, not for the artist. And why are we redacting those company names and amounts or the invoice numbers for the dates of purchase unless something's not being transparent, right? And that's one of several open records requests that I have filed with at least the city of Stockbridge. And in each one of those requests, it has been a battle to get the information and even to get accurate information. Now, side point, throw this out there. Luckily for me, the city attorney sent the attorney general a letter on my open records with a share file link to show her that he had given us everything that he was supposed to. And she had sent me that letter, and when I got into that share file link, those records were very different than the ones I originally received.
Oh, wow.
So we have a problem. We have a very big failure in our county and city leadership. And, I know that's the city of Stockbridge, and people can say, well, that's two different entities, right?
Right.
Maybe that's a true case. Yeah, I guess it is a true case. But, our chairperson heavily endorses some of those city leaders and heavily supports the decisions that they're making. And then let's go to the county. You go ask for county records. Sometimes you get them. Sometimes, you don't get everything you want. And if you do, it doesn't make sense and it doesn't seem like what you're asking for. I'm not saying that they're anywhere near at the level of what I'm seeing at the city of Stockbridge, but there's something wrong. And there's something so wrong that, if we're going to have a meeting and an agenda about development that we're all upset about, why is it that we wait like a couple of days before the meeting to post it? Why not give the citizens enough time to research, review, and be educated? So when they come to those meetings, they know what questions to ask.
Okay.
So transparency is a big one for me. So my vision for us is to have a community that is built on honesty, ethics, to have a community where our ecosystem is protected and safe. I'm not against development, but I am against irresponsible development.
Okay.
And what we're seeing right now in our county is irresponsible development. We have city officials trying to push people out of their homes for as little money as possible. I mean, I don't know about you, but I get pushed out of my home for $140,000, and that's way less than what I
was about to say that.
That's way less than what I paid for my home or invested. And I'm not saying it's happened yet, but it seems like that is the plan, right? And I'm still trying to fight hard, and they can deny it all they want, but it does seem like that is their intention for my home.
That's not fair.
It's not, because where am I going to go at that point? So I'm either stuck living in an environment where my quality of life is going to be severely diminished at the hands of my leaders, or I take what little money they offer me and hope to God I can find another place to live. I certainly don't want anyone else in our community to go through what I'm going through, or what the people living near the Stockbridge amphitheater are going through.
Guys, like I said, she's giving a lot of information out. So I have another question. Why did you not run in the primaries, and how come you are not listed on the ballot?
So that's a good question. So during the primaries, you had two other people running against Carlotta, and we all were hoping that one of those would pan out and she would have an opponent, but it didn't. And so when she was going to be left running unopposed, me and several people in the community that have been working hard on this grassroots effort of Conserve Henry got together, and we decided at that point that I would run as a write-in. Now, most people do not believe that, most people believe that because I am running as a write-in, I'm not qualified, or I shouldn't even be considered. And maybe that's your feeling and whatnot, but I am running as a qualified write-in. Okay, so I went through the election board. We filed everything like we're supposed to. I'm qualified write-in, and therefore I'm qualified to run.
Okay, so I have maybe three different groups, and I have one or two questions in each category. Sorry guys, y'all know I am. I do apologize for that. Categories. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 different categories, and in each categories that I feel is for the community, I have one question per category. So the first one is going to be community engagement. The first question I have for that category would be, how do you plan to involve Constitution in your decision-making process? So what I'm going to do is, so going back to transparency, right? And the meeting records not being there until a couple of days ahead of time, okay, right?
we're going to change that. If I'm elected, I would like to see those records up at least a couple of weeks ahead of time, right? Some of us in the community thought, wouldn't it be great if there was some kind of alert system, kind of like, we get alerts about weather and stuff. Why can't we get that for our community, that where we all get alerts, whether it be text or an email, letting us know that important meetings coming up and letting us know what we need to be at, as well as potentially letting us know what events are going on. We can take that. I know there's programs out there that do that. We could take programs like that and utilize that so that we can make sure that our citizens are involved in the decision-making process, that they're aware, that they have a chance to show up. I don't know about you, but in regards to my life, I work, I have kids, I'm busy, right? So if I'm getting a notice 3 or 4 days ahead of time that I've got to be at a meeting at 6 p.m. after work, that kind of makes it a little hard for some people to make it.
Right.
They have other prior engagements, right? So then what you see is a low turnout at those meetings because they didn't have enough knowledge. Or they weren't fully aware. We've had to stop that because we have to give our citizens a chance to give input on the decisions that we're making. And our current leadership is not allowing that, both at the city of Stockbridge level and Henry County. Can't tell you how many meetings I have attended where we're limited to a certain amount of speaking time. And I get that you can't give us like the whole time because that may, cause the meeting to run over. But like 10 minutes when you've got a room of 20 people that you have to share, it's not effective. And it doesn't give people enough time to get their word out. And then, if you go to the city of Stockbridge and you try to speak, you're often shut down. Or, there's one council member who likes to use this statement. Even though I might live on county land, right? Stockbridge is annexing off heavily by my house. So eventually I'm going to end up being forced into an annexation with Stockbridge. They want to say, no, that's not true. But per SB 612, which was rewritten to favor the city of Stockbridge to help them annex off land for all this massive development because Stockbridge will bend the building codes to be more developer friendly than the county will, right? I'm often told at the city meetings that while they value my opinion, that because I live on county land, that I have no rights, even though the developments they're building is next door to my home.
Guys, the Snow got a lot of information. The next one is policy priorities. What are your top 3 priorities if elected, and how do you plan to achieve them?
So that's a good question. So some of the things that are really my priorities would be to look how we can either stabilize or lower our property taxes. Our property taxes are out the roof right now.
Yes.
And I have a feeling if our current administration stays in office, we may see another increase next year. And that's just astronomical, right? To also, help support education. I can't go in and make all the decisions about education because the Board of Education is over that, but I can certainly do what I can as a leader to help support them to see what we can do. And if that means slowing down some development, then that's what we do, right? Number 3 is to slow down the development. And the way that, we're going to accomplish all those 3 is through several things. The first thing for property taxes is to do a forensic audit of our finances to see where our money's coming and going. Because we are over budget, okay? And we are spending $100K a year for our chair to have a personal security guard. Now keep in mind, that chair position is a part-time job, but we're paying for full-time security service. And we're paying for that security service based on the fact that she brought up a harassment and stalking charge against a private citizen that spoke out against her. She got a 3-year TPO, and the Georgia Supreme Court just overturned that case due to lack of evidence. But we're still paying for that bodyguard. So we obviously have some wasteful spending going on in our county, and we need to identify where that money's going and where it should be going, right? Then I want to do an internal audit of contracts. Okay, I want to see are the people that we're getting to service our county are economically beneficial to us, and then are going to give us the quality of work that we have. I guarantee you, when you go through and you examine all those things, you're going to find things that are going to not only save us money, but it's going to make it to where we can utilize that money and put it back into our community the right way, and hopefully prevent things from like our taxes going up even more, right? In regards to education and supporting them, part of that would be, offering our support. Maybe we find ways to partner with them for what needs they have more so than what they've already been given. But more importantly, it goes back to slowing down that development to allow the schools to catch up to what's already happening, right? And in order to slow that development down, we're going to have to start holding our developers more accountable. So last week I toured a neighborhood. It's a D.R. Horton build that was built in 2018, where the homes range around about $400,000 to $500,000. And I toured it because some of the people that lived in that community were at a loss for words for how bad their roads and some of the sewer systems were looking, and they couldn't get really any assistance from the county. So I went to go tour and see what they were talking about, and their roads are completely falling apart. And they're falling apart because, from what I can tell, it looks like there's inadequate sewer systems possibly in the community. And then there are also, some of the homes are built on wetlands. So what you're going to have is you're going to have water runoff on those roads, and they're going to cause them to crack and break. And then you're going to have sinkholes happening and all that great stuff, and sewer drains falling down. That's where that road, or that neighborhood, and that road was just completely, just absolutely horrific. And some of the sewers I've seen were kind of caving in. And then additionally, if there's a homeowner whose yard is completely sinking in. And if I had to guess, that would be because of maybe something's an issue with potentially the sewer line, I would think, because of how the property was running across the sewer line and where the yard was kind of falling in, right? I don't know about you. In 2018, if I've spent that much money on a house, my roads better be fixed, right?
I was just waiting until you finish. I mean, that's not fair to them, and they paying tax.
But what makes that worse, what compounds that problem for us, is that infrastructure eventually is going to have to be fixed, right? And so the county's going to have to pay for that.
Exactly.
And that causes our taxes to go up.
Exactly.
Right? So there's a cause and effect for everything. So if we start holding those developers more accountable and start making sure that when they're developing, they're finishing their projects, right?
Exactly.
They're doing quality builds. I mean, one of the homes at the D.R. Horton place, or D.R. Horton community, she had told me one of the homeowners had their homes completed without a staircase.
Excuse me?
Yeah, that's mind blowing, right? Like, how is that possible, right?
How is that possible?
And let's be realistic. D.R. Horton, Lennar, Ryan Homes, they are all notoriously nationally and legally for faulty builds. They've had several lawsuits. So why are we approving this? It doesn't make any sense. And then you think about the developers and what they're being allowed to do. They're being allowed to decrease their setbacks, their variances, and when they decrease them, it ends up giving them more land to build on versus saving some of that green space, right? And so some of these communities are being thrown up with no green space, no parks, no recreation.
Right, no backyard.
No backyard. So what are our kids supposed to do?
Right.
Well, how are we supposed to keep them entertained?
Parks,
yeah. I mean, when you don't give kids something to do, what is the saying? Idle minds. I forget the exact saying. Leads to idle play or something to that effect.
I know exactly what you're saying.
So we're putting our youth in a bad position, right?
Very bad position.
And it's all because we are making decisions for the benefit of the developer. So if we start making those things a little bit more challenging for our developers, we say, hey, if you're going to build, we want X amount of sidewalks. We want X amount of green space. We do not want any more apartments. We do not want any more townhouses. We want actual homes that can be purchased later on down the road. There's another problem. We're building all these townhomes, all these townhouses and apartments, but we're not building any homes so that our youth can one day be homeowners.
I was going to ask you that.
And that's sad.
Why are these big companies purchasing these homes and no one else is able to purchase these homes? Well, it's like every time homes go up.
It's not just the companies purchasing the homes. You've got the developers building the homes that are building places that aren't homes. You got townhouses and apartments. So if you take a big piece of property and you decide that this is all going to be townhouses and apartments and not actual homes for one day somebody to own, we're just compounding that issue again, right? And the reason that's being done is because that's a bigger tax bracket for the county. They get more taxes off of those properties than they do ours.
Wow.
The saddest part you have to realize is that our chair owns development companies, and so does some of her family. Now, I get it's not illegal to own development companies and be in the chair, but I'm a firm believer that if you have any financial interest in anything you do, right, it is going to impact your judgment, and you cannot be impartial. We have to have an impartial leader. We have to have somebody that is going to make the judgment based on what's best for the community, not what's best for the developer.
Right.
And if we do that, we're going to slow down development. Chances are the forensic audit's going to find things that we know are probably already there that we can rectify and clean up, and that we can get ourselves back on track.
Again, Ms. Snow is giving you guys a lot of information. It's a lot. Budget management. You probably already, some of these questions that I'm going to answer, she probably already done touched it. But the budget management, how do you, excuse me, guys. How do you promise to address budget deficiency while still funding essential services?
It goes back to that forensic audit. We have to
There you
figure
go.
out where that money is, right?
There you go.
We also have to figure out who in our county is utilizing resources for free, right? I mean,
in the county.
I don't know off the top of my head who all may or may not be doing it, but I do believe that we have allowed some of people in our county to have an unlimited credit card to finance their life at our tax dollars. Again, I don't know if that's a complete true statement, but it's some information that's been given to me. And I know that as a county leader, you do get some things paid for in lunches and dinners and whatnot, but from my understanding, a lot of our leaders, or maybe just our chair, goes and takes a lot of trips. And when she takes her trips, she takes her bodyguard. And when she needs a hotel, her bodyguard gets a hotel. So therefore, we're paying extra. Again, if we want to make sure that we are in our budget, we're using our money effectively, we need to put in the rules, the parameters, and we need to identify where that's all going. And I don't have a problem doing that because that's what I do at my job all the time. In my current line of work, I am responsible for maintaining a 45 gross profit margin or higher. If I can't do that, then I can't justify salaries. And if I can't justify salaries, I have to lay off people.
There you go.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but that is a bad place to be in life. And I've laid off a lot of people in my life, not at my current company, but at previous companies in my history, right? It's sad to have to do that. And my team relies on me. I hired those people, I put them in their place, I trained them, I fostered growth with them. It would break my heart for them to not have a job because I didn't do what I was supposed to do and direct our division the right way. And we need somebody who's going to direct the county the right way.
Now, speaking of jobs, what strategy do you have? And this is economic development, guys. Question. What strategy do you have for promoting job growth and supporting local businesses? I think that's a good question.
It is a good question. So I had the pleasure of attending Divine Harvest International last Saturday night for a women's group event that was geared strictly for small business owners, right? And Pastor Orlando James, man, I was just blown away with what she's doing in the community. Not only is she ministering to the community and helping the community, but she's using her platform and her network of people to bring in local businesses and to help support them. I want to see more of that in our community.
Me too.
I want to see people like Pastor Orlando James and others do that same thing that she's doing. And I'm sure there are others, but if we all get them all together and we uplift them together, it would be great.
Yes.
Now, I know we have some of that happening in our county, but what I've noticed, a lot of those things that are happening in our county, those programs or what have you, that some of our leaders are doing, and not all of them, it tends to be kind of preferential treatment, so to say. I'll give you a good example. I think it's tonight, or it was last night, some of our leaders were doing a political, forum for the citizens of Henry County. And, you had some state leaders and you had some of our local leaders, including your chair. But that was held at Eagles Landing Country Club. So how many of you were aware that that was happening yesterday or today? Forgive me if I don't know the exact date, but how many of you were able to get in the Eagles Landing Country Club to hear your song? There you go, preferential.
I mean, God,
preferential.
I can't get the Eagles.
I would have liked to seen them do it in a manner or in an area where every citizen felt comfortable attending and knew how to get there. But that's not how it's done, right? So we've got to stop the preferential treatment for small businesses and embrace all small businesses in our community. And as for job growth, what I find interesting is we are being told that we're building because we're creating jobs for our county. We want the doctors, we want the attorneys, we want the higher level of people to come here. And that's what one of the City of Stockbridge members constantly echoes, right? But yet we're seeing a Costco get built, which I'm great. I'm happy about Costco. Sprouts, great for that. Starbucks, Chick-fil-A. But what do those jobs pay? Not much, right? Let me ask you a question. Do those jobs pay enough to live in those new townhouses off the bridges of Jodeco that we rent? No.
Doubt that very seriously.
Now, that was built with the thought process it was going to be a live, work, and play scenario. I can tell you right now, if you're working at Costco, Starbucks, and Chick-fil-A, chances are you can't afford to live in one of those. So how is that beneficial and how's that job growth? It's not. The way I think that we need to do job growth in our county is simple. Vocational education has went down over the years, and it's caused a massive shortage throughout the U.S. in multiple things. So back to me again, I do a director of operations, and one of the things that we do, or our main thing is, I recruit 1099 court reporters and videographers to cover our deposition business nationally, right? And right now there's a massive shortage of court reporters nationally, massive. And all of us talk about how this all happened because back, when I first started, there was no shortage, but now it's huge, right? And it's because the schools have taken out the vocational element out of the system, right? And more or less in your high schools right now, there's more promotion of universities and going to college, but that doesn't fit every kid in the world.
No.
It doesn't. But there's so many vocational jobs out there that are really sustaining that you could really make a lot of money at. Most people don't realize this, but court reporters, man, they can make over 6 figures if they're good hustlers. It all depends on the court reporter. If a court reporter wants to go out there and hustle, I've seen court reporters walk away with $200,000 a year. That's a vocational program, right? And you got HVAC, you've got mechanics, you've got
like me, cosmetology.
Yes, you got that. We have tons of vocational programs that we could promote. And when I say promote, we've got to do better. So I do know in Henry County we do have some free vocational courses for like logistic management, and I think HVAC's in there and a couple others, and I applaud them for that, right? But we need to add more because a lot of those jobs are just industrial, right? But why not create some vocational programs that are geared at office work or court reporting, right? Those things where it kind of targets more people and it gets more people involved. Because if you do that, you can give those same individuals job growth within your county, and you can solve some of the shortage problems. Because court reporting is not the only vocational area that's got shortages.
Yes.
So that's, something I think that it's quite easy and feasible to do.
Mr. You had gave the community so much information.
Thank you.
What would you like to leave the community? What would you like to leave the community with? And sorry guys, I'm sorry. How can they vote for you on the ballot? Please inform how they can do that.
So when you go to vote, you're going to see Carlotta's name, and you'll see a checkbox, and under it it'll say write in. If you tap on that, it'll pull up a screen, and you're going to type in my name, which is Connie Snow, and that's C as in cat, O as in Oliver, N as in Nancy, N as in Nancy, I as in igloo, E as in elephant, last name is Snow, S as in Sam, N as in Nancy, O as in Oliver, W as in woman, for Henry County Chair Commissioner.
Okay. What do you would like to tell the community? One more thing before we end up out. What would be the last thing you would like to say to the community?
Together we're stronger.
Yes.
And together we can conserve Henry County, and we can conserve our community. So please remember on November 5th, if you do not like the direction that Henry County is going in, please write in Connie Snow.
Thank you, Ms. Snow. Thank you. Thank you for giving the community so much information. Again, there's a lot of people who did not know anything with the information that you gave.
Right.
I didn't know a lot of stuff. I didn't even know. Once I finish with this podcast, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna sit and research a lot of things because I was so unaware of a lot of things. So thank you very much for the information that you gave us. Guys, if you agree with everything that she said, she gave you the right information, please go vote for her. And again, how can they find you on the ballot? Say it again.
You just go where Carlotta's name is, and you'll see her name with a checkbox, and under that you'll see write in, tap on the write in, and then you type in my name.
Again, she gave us a lot of information. One thing I could say, she is for the community. She's definitely for the community. Again, thank you, Ms. Snow, for taking the time out to come sit on Lots by Q podcast. And I really enjoy you. Thank you, guys. I'll see y'all guys next time for the next episode of Lots by Q podcast.